Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control podcast. On today's podcast, I'm joined by redshirt sophomore on the LaSalle women's lacrosse team, Alana Lathan. Before college, Alana was a first-team All-Mercury, first-team All-PAC in her season, and a All-Pioneer Athletic Conference first team as well. Uh, Alana, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, and how's everything going?
Yeah, no problem. Everything's great. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been kind of crappy weather here today, but other than that, it's been a pretty decent weekend so far. Just trying to relax before school starts up again on Monday.
Yeah, totally get you. Yeah, it's been pretty rainy here too, but I'm super excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, obviously, this past Friday, summer officially ended. So, how was your summer, and did you do anything interesting, whether it was lacrosse related or not?
My summer was pretty good. I actually moved to Delaware. It was kind of like spur of the moment type of thing, but I we moved, me, my sister, and my mom moved right outside of Rehoboth area, so like beachy vibe. So we spent a lot of time there, took a couple like shore trips and hung out with friends. Pretty simple.
Nice. It sounds like a fun summer. And obviously, in regards to training, what were you sort of hoping to work on for this upcoming season?
I was just trying to perfect my shot always. Like you just always got to work at that just so you never lose it. Before I got into like training and everything, we had meetings with our coaches, like, just a postseason meeting. And our offensive coach, Kelly Ryan, just told me to like work on like shooting like from like further out, like just so I don't get like mauled in the eight and just working on power, finesse, like all the fundamentals basically.
Yeah. What are some drills I guess you do to work on your shooting, especially from long range?
I honestly just stand at the eight, like, and take like an 8 meter type of shot, but just like start ripping. I'll start off closer just so I can get like a range of motion down better. And always like both hands just in case, even though I'm more prominent with my left. But yeah, just honestly just working up to the higher distance. Like if you're just starting from like the 12, it's not really gonna help you out. So just kind of improving that over like a span of time instead of right away is probably the best way to go.
Now, obviously, you guys are, I'm assuming, the middle of getting ready for fall ball. So, what have you guys been doing during the fall to sort of get ready as a team before the season begins this spring?
Yeah. We're usually just fundamental based. Like we try to do that in like a fun way. Like we play a lot of like 3v2 games, stuff like that. And it honestly just feeds into like our chemistry. Like we do a lot of small sided games, so like you got like a small space to work a lot like well together. So it just gives like freshmen a chance to like get in there, transfers as myself last year. Like that really helps me get to know the team and like work with everybody. And then it just builds our chemistry like long term.
Yeah. How is your mindset heading into this year, not being that transfer on the team? Because it must be a little bit more calmer now, knowing
Yeah, I'm
sort of that
definitely
everybody, know what how things work over there.
yeah, absolutely. I mean they were really welcoming last year, but I'm definitely like a lot more comfortable, like just immediately myself instead of kind of like seeing what the vibes are and everything. But yeah, it's great to like just have like a team that I've been on for more than a year because that's a new concept for me. Besides like high school, but yeah, it was really great. I'm a lot more comfortable and like really using like my voice more in terms of like just addressing things on the team, just encouraging people, talking to freshmen, just because I feel like now I've got like my place instead of just like the new girl. So and
Yeah.
excited.
How are the freshmen this year?
They're great. They're so good. And I'm like, it's crazy. Like they're all just like quick, athletic, they're all strong. Like I feel like the thing with freshmen is that, oh, like you need to get in the weight room, but like these girls are jacked and like they're ready to play, which is super exciting.
I feel like in this day and age, most people like work out so much that it's not really like obviously when you get older, you get bigger, but like I feel like now, like with all these workout plans, everyone has trainers. It's usually that's not that much of a case as it used to be back then.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're all just ready to go. And they're like, I said that I was kind of hesitant to use my voice. Like they're all talking. We've got a defender named Natalie, and she's just like chirpy, but in the best way. Like she's like, let's go. I'm ready. She's talking louder than any defender we've got on the field. Like it's great to see.
Well, I want to transition now and sort of talk about the beginning of your career and sort of work all the way up to where you are today.
Yeah.
So, from the research I did on yourself, it says that you're from Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So, talk about growing up there and how did you start playing lacrosse?
Phoenix was great. Since I don't live there anymore, I've got a lot more love for it. Like I miss it dearly and like all my friends are from there. So, but it was definitely smaller when I was growing up. Like it's more of like a hot spot now, which is crazy to me because I'm like a fourth gen. Like my fam's just like always been there. But it was great. The high school lacrosse team there has gotten like only better since I left. I started playing just because of my mom. Like she played in high school. She never like went to college or anything for it, but that kind of like sparked my initial interest. And then I was just like surrounded as sports like all the time. Like I played field hockey, softball as a kid. To most people's surprise, I didn't play basketball. I'm super tall, just like I can't make a layup, so it's honestly not worth it. But yeah, I just got really excited and then kind of stuck with it. And in terms of like picking lacrosse, I played softball too, like I mentioned. So I kind of just liked it better. Like it was more active, got to run more, more exciting, higher pace. So I picked that in middle school to like focus on, and then I kind of just ran with it.
That's surprising because I feel like a lot of lacrosse players play basketball during the
Yeah.
winter just because of the defense translates well to
Yeah.
the defense in lacrosse.
Yeah. I just never got into it. Like I was never I like to be like good at things I do, and I was really not good. So I was just like, okay, I'll just leave winter open.
Hey, it is what it is, but I feel like you could be a good defender, but don't just pass the ball so you don't have to try to shoot buckets. That's probably what
Yeah.
I would do.
Same.
Now, growing up, did you like watch lacrosse and at all? And if so, like who was some of your favorite players and teams that you admired?
Yeah, I definitely got a lot into it, into like watching in middle school, definitely. Like I feel like that's when I started paying attention to just like the championships more, and like that there was actually this the whole like NCAA tournament that I just had no idea about. And I watched like all the greats, like like Kayla Trainer, Taylor Cummings, like they were always like great. But my favorite was definitely Kenzie Kent, that played for BC. Like she's just a beast, quick. I don't even play low attack, but she just like crease rolls were crazy. I'm a big like BC fan underlying, which like I didn't really realize until like I also like Jen Medjid like this past year. Like I just always focus on girls that are at BC apparently. So yeah, but that honestly like that whole program is great and I love watching all of them.
Hey, you're not playing them. At least you didn't play them last year, so I feel like
Yeah.
that's okay to root for them. As long as unless you guys face them in the tournament at some point, then I feel like that's okay.
Yeah. I would have been fangirling anyways.
Now, talk a little bit more about your high school lacrosse experience with Phoenixville and sort of what you took away from that time of your life, and what's like your favorite memory from your high school lacrosse days when you look back on it now.
Yeah. So honestly just playing like I see it now, like playing with girls that you like grew up with is like an unbeatable experience. Like especially when we started off with like rec together and kind of just worked our way up and some of us went to college for it, but like regardless it was like always just like just community feel, like it was always like comfortable and like those were honestly like the most fun practices always. My favorite high school memory lacrosse wise probably there were honestly a lot, but my senior year we beat Springford, which is like a huge rival in that conference in the pack for us. And that's like never been a thing. Like years leading up to, you're just like, okay, like we're playing Springford, guys, keep your head up. But my senior year we beat them, which was great. I think I had like a couple goals in that game, so it was really exciting. And like it just I don't know. It was just a good like full circle moment for me because we just never thought it was possible, but we like made it happen, which is great.
And how do you think your high school lacrosse days helped prepare you for college lacrosse?
Probably just like teammate wise was always great. I played Fantastics, which was the club that I was on, and that was like really high competition just within the girls. Like it's a lot of private school girls, just like honestly great lacrosse high schools in general, like Conestoga, Carroll's in there. So honestly, just the girls I played with kept me like on my feet, like just always working to get better. And they also have girls that were past Fantastics that play in college come to coach us. So they kind of kept us at that level, prepared us for it. We would like randomly condition like at that type of level. So we're running like repeats as like 17-year-olds and we're like, okay, we better get it together. This is gonna be like a rude awakening. But like Sam Swart, which was like Syracuse grad, that was one of my coaches, Katie Detweiler, like just really great roles in the lacrosse community like got to share their experience and like input with us. So I think that honestly made a huge impact on how I prepared myself.
Now, you originally committed to George Mason University, so talk about that recruiting process. What made you want to go there originally before when you were in high school, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I originally came into Mason because of Jessie Morgan. She was the original head coach when I committed. I met her at a clinic with like multiple schools there, and just the way she explained like her drill and like carried herself, I immediately like was in awe. I physically like fell at her feet, like she was playing dummy D, and I tripped right before her, and literally like so embarrassing. But it was like I was just so in awe of her, and just like how she talked about the sport, like just really caught my interest. So I started looking into her and like George Mason because at this point I've never heard of it. So I kind of just started comparing everything to Mason in my recruiting process. I was lucky enough to like spark her attention and like the assistants, so I got to know the campus better and team better. So I was going to clinics, camps, whatever I could, and then yeah, like further in my recruiting process, like I was at the point where a decision kind of needed to be made, and I just kept comparing everything, like coaches, vibes to Mason. And then as a junior, I committed there and I definitely don't regret it. It was like a really great experience in my life.
And as a freshman with George Mason, what was sort of the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse?
Probably the speed. Like you see it on TV and you're like, oh yeah, like they look fast, but then you get there and you like never stop working. Like I feel like in high school, you know, like a ref's tying their shoe, so you get like a breather and you get like a water break. But even at practice, like practicing, watching practice, it's like high intensity, high speed, 24/7. Which I think like you need definitely to be able to keep up with other teams and just keep improving your game. But it was just definitely like a rude awakening. I was like, oh, so I'm just always gonna be out of breath. Got it.
Now, after your freshman year, you transferred to LaSalle. I want to
Yeah.
ask you what made you want to enter the transfer portal and what did you take away from your experience with George Mason? And I guess why did LaSalle sort of stand out to you when you were in that transfer process?
Yeah. So there was a coaching change when I was still in high school. So just when I got there, it wasn't necessarily the environment I signed up for. I kind of at first was like, okay, like everybody else is dealing with this because no one there was recruited by it was Caramupo and Lindsay Munoz at the time. Um, so I honestly just didn't like mesh well, I think. My mental health was like kind of going through it. And it just like wasn't what I signed up for initially, which was hard for me to admit to myself just because like of my initial like love for the school and sport. But you know, the freshman year you go through a lot of stuff anyways, but definitely it just wasn't what I was looking for. But I think like in recruiting processes for like every sport, like the path is kind of like written out for you ahead of time. Like there's a lot of like supposed tos, which I honestly think the curveball for me of like being like, okay, I think I need to transfer was something I needed because it just kind of woke me up out of it, honestly, because you're just like doing what everybody's telling you to do. But at this point, I got to like take a step back and see what I wanted. And like I wasn't like a 16-year-old at this point anymore. So I wasn't like looking for a big school away from home. It was more like rationalized for where I was at in that moment. And LaSalle was honestly the best fit for me. I originally was looking at LaSalle in high school, but as I said, like wanted a bigger school away from home, and a small school in Philly was not what I was looking for. But I honestly grew like really close to the coaches the first time around, and then when I entered the portal, Katie Rhodes texted me, was like, "Hey, like, want to try this again?" And like I was like, of course, because they were so great, and then I got to know the school a lot better this time. And of course, like I was keeping up with them in the process of it, and it just seemed like somewhere I wanted to be. So after probably like a couple months, maybe two, 1.5, I called her on my way to like a fantastic practice that I was coaching and was like, hey, like I'm ready. And so we kind of just took it off from there. Um, but Mason was great. Like I met a lot of great people in the process, and those girls are definitely tough. You know what I mean? Like I learned a lot from them and I learned a lot from the coaches as well. It just like wasn't where I was at in that point in time. And I don't regret committing there at all. I don't regret going for a year, but just like where I'm at now is definitely where I'm supposed to be for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I feel like there's no shame in, transferring. I feel like
Yeah,
people try to do that and I just never get it because obviously when you're in 16 years old, your sort of wants and needs are much different than your wants and needs as a college student, as a freshman. But
yeah,
I feel like it's nice that you sort of realize that after your freshman year and not during like your junior year where you sort of it makes it more complicated once you're an upperclassman, I would
right.
imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, let's talk about your time with LaSalle so far. So you play in the Atlantic 10 Conference. What's it like being a part of the A10 and just the competition that you face each game?
Great vibes in the A10, honestly. Mason's also in the A10, so we get to like see them once a year. But honestly, the competition is crazy. Like Richmond, great, UMass, Davidson, like it's all like a lot of high intensity SJUs coming out of the waterworks with like A10 title a couple years ago. So honestly, like everyone's here to play and it's like a great conference to be a part of. I learn a lot from the girls that we just play against, honestly. A lot of them are going pro at some of the higher ones. And it's just like great vibes all around, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, let's talk about a little bit about you individually. So, during your collegiate career, just for looking at the statistics, you've kept improving and getting better throughout your time with LaSalle. So, what would you say is the biggest improvement you've made to your game throughout your time in college?
Probably just confidence, honestly. Like you said earlier, like being a transfer last year is definitely like a okay, like let's see how this goes. So I think I wasn't necessarily shy, but like in terms of playing, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. You know what I mean? Like everybody was super welcoming, but like even as like an underclassman that was like starting, I was trying to, like know my place. In terms of just like dynamic, I was trying to fit in with the chemistry, everything like that. So I think honestly, as the season went on, I got more comfortable just with the girls and then also with myself, like since I was a redshirt my freshman year, like I kind of had like a whole identity, what's happening with me in lacrosse. So to be like able to overcome that and also kind of like get my game back in a sense where I'm not like a high schooler anymore was definitely like it was definitely hard, but I got there and I just kept working and like trusting myself, trusting my teammates, my coaches, and like got to the point where like I wanted to be, but there's always a lot more to improve on.
And how do you sort of work on your versatility as an attacker? Because I feel like that's something that I always find interesting. I think that something that really stood out to me about your game was just how good you are as an attacker, sort of figure out different ways to sort of beat defenders when they're attacking you and stuff like that, but also sort of doing a good job when the midfield tries to make that transition and sort of creating possession for your team
Yeah.
in your own end. I think that's sort of something that stood out to me. So how do you sort of work on that versatility? That's something that I'm always interested talking to attackers about.
Yeah. Probably I just try stuff at practice. Like the great thing about playing against your own team at practice is that like they know you better than any team does. You know what I mean? So like my like defenders on our team aren't just gonna like let me go left. You know what I mean? Because that's like what I want. So they challenge me to like come up with something better or something different just to try out. And honestly, like you kind of get bored of the same things you're doing as an attacker too, because then like on film, you're like the most scoutable person in the world. So I just try to throw different things in there. Honestly, it's like kind of like go with the flow for me. Like I don't necessarily plan it out ahead of time, but just like finding new ways to feed off of my teammates. Like that's one of the greatest things that I've ever got to be is to be a teammate. So I definitely just use it to my advantage all the time because I'm not like the only one on the field. You know what I mean? Like I've got six other girls that are more than capable of doing great things. So I think teams work best when they feed off of each other and like each other's strengths. Um, so honestly, just using my teammates for like good, you know what I mean? Instead of being like, get out of my way, it's more of a like, I'm with you, pass me the ball here, you run that way. Like you'll probably see it on film. Like I'm always pointing somewhere and like saying something at practice. I do the same thing. So it's honestly just like never being like scared to try something because it's always gonna add up to something in the end.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing to have as a mindset because obviously, like you mentioned, the scouting in college is much more different than in high school. Like
Yeah.
most coaches probably look at film and know every tendency that you might have. So it's always good to try to build off that to surprise the defenders a little bit when you go against those teams.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, you were talking about your confidence earlier. How do you sort of work on that? Because I feel like confidence is something that it's so hard to gain confidence, yet it's so easy to lose confidence. I'm curious how you sort of try to work on that and try to give yourself as much confidence before going in each game.
Yeah, games are definitely different because you're like it's a lot of pressure. But honestly, like I said this in like a meeting that we just had recently with our team because we were kind of trying to find a kind of like just a phrase for the year. We do like word of the week. Like this past week was discipline. So I threw this out as an idea. It was pressure is a privilege. And I think a lot of times people kind of, crack a little bit under pressure or it freaks them out or like the expectation of what something's supposed to be or who they're supposed to be, who they're supposed to play like is always this huge thing. So the fact that eyes are on you is a good thing. Like I always try to think that like it might be scary in the moment. Like I'm like, oh my God, like these coaches are watching me. I was scouted. These defenders know exactly anything about me, because like that's their job is to study me. But honestly, like the fact that that's happening is like a privilege in itself. You know what I mean? And you just kind of work with it. Like you just got to trust yourself. Like I said earlier, like trust your teammates. It's not as deep as you think. And it's supposed to be fun. Like that's the best part about this is that I feel like we were all put in this position to like have fun as a job. You know what I mean? Like this sport is something that we've all played forever. So I honestly just kind of go with it. Like you just got to play the best you can and trust yourself.
Now, obviously, not the season you guys wanted to have last year. So, what were some of the positive things you took away that you think are going to help your team out for next season? And what are your team's sort of goals and expectations for next year as well?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely not the season we were looking for, but I think out of it, I specifically, and I've made sure to like spread this around like our team as well, is that like we have talent. Like I think we were written off as like, oh, these girls aren't good at this sport, but it was that we just didn't work together in the best way that we could. But when we did, when we had all of our players working together as a unit and just as a team in general, like we produced offense, produced defensive stops. Like whenever we were together, it worked. So I think just working on that, like trying to create more of like a chemistry based team in terms like I said earlier, like just using your teammates for like everything. Like even if it's a drive where like a 1v1 is just the way to go, like your teammates also have a part in that. So I think we're just gonna use that better. Like just find ways to use each other and overcome like small mistakes that happen because we also would kind of get flustered if something bad happened once. So just like advocating all the time. And we just kind of have a goal of like earn not given was like the meeting thing that we talked about before. Like I mentioned that we had a team meeting. Earn not given is just like our phrase of the year. Just so that like no one is like too comfortable in their spot, like on the team, that we're always working for each other for wins, for just like ourselves. Like as players, we just have to be constantly getting better at all times, and we should want that for each other. So earn not given is the phrase of the year for sure.
Now, another question I want to ask you was how did you sort of learn to balance both academics and lacrosse at such a high level? We talked about sort of the adjustment on the field, but I feel like people forget about some of that adjustment you have to make off the field as well.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm still learning, to be completely honest with you, but like honestly using resources at schools, like there's so many academic support programs for athletes like all around the country, and like talking to an academic athletic advisor like helps you out completely. Even at Mason, like they have just a great process for everyone to go through and like things to trust, just so like because you're kind of scrambled in a way where you're like, I got practice, I got class, I got all these things. So like making sure that you're using what they're giving you like actually goes a long way, and just like taking time to like sit down for yourself and like schedule out what you can do, because it definitely gets a little crazy in terms of time management.
No, another question I want to ask you was what's been your favorite goal you've ever scored in your collegiate career?
Oh wow. um Probably a breakaway I had against Richmond this past season. That game was honestly a good one for me. It was my first collegiate hat trick ever, so I was super exciting. And it was like a end of one of the quarters. We were like, if we get the ball, we're just running it down. And one of our defenders, I think, made like a pass that was like kind of on the ground, but we just had to keep going. There was like 10 seconds left. And one of the other girls that transferred with me, or I guess I was after her, but she transferred as well from George Mason. Her name's Ellen Stickney. Just like kind of dished me the ball and like caught it off stick, just shot immediately because I heard another one of my teammates, Matt Click, saying someone there was on my back. So I just made the shot as fast as I could and it went in. So it was really great, especially since it was against such a like high ranked team. I felt pretty cool in the moment.
So we're now in a segment I like to call five questions that have nothing to do with sports. And the goal of this segment is to hopefully get to know you a little bit more
Okay,
off the field. So first one is, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
that's a great question.
I can answer it for myself if you need time to think
Yeah,
about.
go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say too. Definitely.
I would say probably Ryan Reynolds. I think he's a funny guy, good actor, and obviously we don't look anything alike, but I think it would just be funny to brag to my friends to say they
Yeah.
played me in a movie. So
Yeah. Mine would probably be Viola Davis. Like she's decently older than me, but I love her in like everything she's in, like The Help, How to Get Away with Murder. I think she's like one of the best actresses I've ever seen. So that'd be really cool if she played me.
yeah, I saw the Air movie, and she was in
Yeah.
that. She played Michael Jordan's mom, and she was
Yeah.
really good. I don't know if they're going to do an Oscars this year because of everything that's going on in Hollywood, but
Yeah.
I feel like she might would be considered to win one of those. I'm not a big
Yeah.
movie guy, but I feel like she did a good enough job to do that. So
Yeah. She definitely
now,
deserves it for sure.
for sure. Now, what is the most underrated holiday, and what's the most overrated holiday?
Overrated Valentine's Day for sure. Like no one cares your boot up, just saying. But it's I get like the interest in it. Like I get it, but it's not that deep to me. And then underrated Thanksgiving. Like that food is unbeatable every year. And like it honestly stands for something greater than that. But my favorite part is like you just get to eat until you can't. And then like Black Friday is the next day. So you get to spend money and just grub, which are two things I consider myself to be pretty good at. So I definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, I would say Thanksgiving is definitely the most underrated just because I feel like it gets overshadowed by Christmas and Halloween, but
Right.
I feel like it's like super fun. There's not a lot of pressure with it like some of the other holidays, and family food and football is always good. So and then for me most overrated, I would say Valentine's Day as well, but I won't lie, I do kind of enjoy going on IG and seeing who's in a relationship that I didn't know about because you always get
Okay.
surprised every year.
You're for
I
the
feel like
tea.
it is interesting. I won't lie about that, but
Yeah.
I would say Halloween's pretty overrated just because like trick or treating's the best part of it, and then once
Yeah.
that's over with, it's really just another day, and it just kind of it's just I feel like it's not as fun as an adult as it was when you were a kid.
Yeah. You're not a costume guy?
No, not really, unfortunately. I'm the guy that wears the jersey at the party, and that's my
Oh
costume.
no. I liked you this whole time and now I don't know what to do. That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's my one red flag, I guess, that I
Yeah.
have,
We'll get through it.
which
Don't worry about it.
hey, if that's the only red flag I have, I'll take it. So I feel like there could be worse ones out there. Now, what's the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Oh my gosh, my friend sent me a TikTok that Michael B. Jordan has a girlfriend, which I guess goes to your point about Valentine's Day, but like I'm heartbroken and I definitely cried about it. So
I did not see that, but I would say for me, probably, I don't know, probably just college football stuff. I've been pretty interested about that, seeing what
yeah.
Deion Sanders is doing and sort
Yeah.
of how I know some people don't like what he's doing because people think it's a little over the top, but some people do. And I just think it's pretty interesting. But I feel like you're going to see more of that in college athletics because I think, I don't know, I find him pretty interesting guy. So I like him
Do
though,
I,
personally.
honestly. Yeah, definitely.
Now, who has the best off the field style on the LaSalle women's lacrosse team?
Off the field style. Probably, actually, we just got this freshman. Her name's Naya Bishop, and she's dripped out every day. Like going to class, going to practice. Like she'll change into her practice clothes when she gets there because she's that dripped out all day. She's always got this like big chain with her name on it. Her nails are always done. Like she's just drippy no matter what. So definitely her.
Do you think you might have the best style in all of women's college lacrosse? Because I feel super underdressed right now. I love
You
the
think?
sweater and the necklace. Yeah, the fall outfit's really going well for you today.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm just honestly I was waiting for a fall day. But no, definitely not. I like It's so funny because I always am like, I have a million clothes, but I never wear them. Like it's always things I'm always like, meh. But I'll take it. Like I'll take best style, but I think our entire team would disagree with you, honestly, but it's totally fine.
Can you at least say you might have the best hair in all of women's college lacrosse? I feel like you
I'll take
definitely
that.
have that. Yeah.
I will take that definitely.
Now, last non-lacrosse question is what is one item on your bucket list that you hope to accomplish one day?
Probably, I'm a big music girl. Like I enjoy music. You can probably see the albums behind me. Um, but playing piano is like top of my list. I grew up with like a piano in our house that I never got to play. Like it was just always like sitting there. And I think it'd be so cool. Like I'm really into like R&B jazz vibes. So I think if I could just like casually sit down at a piano and like just play it, that's like the most, I don't know. It just seems really cool, huge flex to me. So probably that.
That's a good one. I honestly would love to learn how to play the piano myself,
Yeah.
because I during at night when I try to fall asleep, I like listening to piano covers of like well-known songs, especially like older songs from like Frank Sinatra and all that. And
Okay.
it's really talented to see how some of these people do it. And I think it's a peaceful instrument. And yeah, I'd definitely love to learn as well. I'm trying to learn guitar first. I just got one, so that's my first thing I'm gonna check off my list before I learn the
Yeah.
piano. But I definitely like that one a lot. I
Yeah.
think for me, mine's pretty basic, but just like travel different spots. I think a unique thing maybe is try to see every single MLB ballpark. I think that would be a lot of fun to do that.
Yeah, yeah. They're honestly so cool. My mom's kind of doing that like by accident and she's always got something to say about it, so I definitely suggest it.
Yeah, because like with basketball and hockey and football stadiums, they're all pretty much the same everywhere you go. But I
Yeah.
feel like baseball ballparks are a little bit different everywhere you go because there's a uniqueness to them. So that's probably why I would probably pick that one.
Yeah.
Well, getting back to some lacrosse questions now, and from your perspective, how do you think what should be done, I guess, to help grow women's lacrosse?
Probably athletes supporting athletes. Like I feel like WNBA and like the national women's lacrosse or soccer team has been getting a lot of like exposure in general just among the public, and I think it's because like it's such a great part about it is that they have other athletes in their corners. Like you'll see NBA players at WNBA games and just like any honestly athlete posting about like the women's soccer team like I think that goes a long way because they're using their platform in a sense where like you can just spread all this. So I think they could do that for the pro women's lacrosse league or also like just college wise. Like when we have people at our games, like it just goes a long way. You know what I mean? Like if we've got basketball players at our game or soccer players or women's soccer players, like it just makes the whole community of sport and then it just spreads like wildfire. So I think that's honestly the best route to go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, one more question I want to ask you, Alana, before we end this interview is do you have any shout outs you want to give to your teammates, family members, and friends, and who should we have on the podcast next?
Definitely big shout out to all my teammates. They're all great. And my current coaches, they're saved my life. So love them dearly. Shout out to my mom. She's cool. And honestly, I think you should have Anya Waller next. She is a goalie at Howard. I played fantastics with her. And she's smartest person I've literally ever met. She's so good at her job. She stuffs me like crazy. Like she knows every shot I'm taking before I take it. So I think she'd be a great person to have on the pod, definitely.
I'll definitely reach out and see what she has to say. But
Yeah.
Alana, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. It means so much to myself. I think you're a great player, but an even better person as well. So I just wanted to let you know that. And I wish
Yeah.
you nothing but the best for the upcoming season. I think you're going to do amazing and excited to see how it all plays out. But you're definitely my favorite player on the team.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thanks you so much for having me. It was honestly so much fun. Can't wait. Cannot wait for season.